bring up Coss Marte from Conbody. Give him a round of applause, y'all.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about your company, your story. Why don't you tell us what your company is and kind of the high level of what you guys do?
Yeah, so, damn, it's bright. It's fucking bright. Yeah, so my name is Coss Marte. I'm the CEO and founder of Conbody. Conbody is a prison-style boot camp where we hire people coming out of prison to teach fitness classes.
So just to start from the beginning, like how did you get involved in entrepreneurship in life, and kind of what was your kind of founding story?
So I got involved with entrepreneurship, I would say, when I was like 5 years old. I grew up around the block here on Rivington Street. My mom still pays $700 for a two-bedroom apartment. Been there since the early 80s. And yeah, she basically came over here 6 months pregnant with me from the Dominican Republic with very little. The whole building, you know, pretty much half of the building that I grew up in, 42 Rivington Street, was my cousins or uncles or family members. So we first moved in with my aunt, who we lived in her couch, and it was just her and I for a little while. And as you know, the situation moved forward, we grew up very much under the poverty line. And as a kid, you know, I would ask my mom, you know, can I have some money to buy this or that? And the number one excuse was that she didn't have enough. So I had to get it. And the way I got it was I was the kid that had a black garbage bag. You know, I lived on the 5th floor, walk up, and I was, you know, knocking from door to door, collecting Heineken bottles from everybody and going to the bodega and changing them for nickels. And that was like my first real hustle.
And what did you learn from that experience? Is that something that has stayed with you, or there's pieces of that you think are still part of your entrepreneurial DNA?
Absolutely. I think just, you know, it's like ride or die. It's like you get it or you know, I always live my life like if you don't, you know, if you got to ask to eat, you know. And my mom always said, if you don't ask, you don't eat. And my mom has always been the one that's like, you know, gets on the train, and so my mom sold like this old lotion product called Jafra. It was like old Spanish hustling, you know, product, and she always got on the bus or the train, and she'll be, you know, sitting by somebody and start a simple conversation and be like, oh, I got, and like pop out like 20 types of lotion out of a bag and like start putting it in people's hands and like rubbing it in and like making them smell it. So just things like that, like I just like observed and naturally did and follow those footsteps.
Did you have other entrepreneurs in your family or people who were hustling in whatever way?
Yeah, so my family, I grew up weird. My mom and I lived, yeah. My mom and I lived over here alone for a little while. Then my brother was born, but my dad was in Dominican Republic raising my sisters, and they didn't come till the early 90s until they got like visas and all, and immigration issues. So my dad was also a hustler as well. He was a beekeeper in Dominican Republic, and he had his own honeybee, you know, business straight from scratch in the middle of the mountain, nowhere. Like I visited one time, I'm like, how the hell you got this from, you know, he said he basically had a mule and like was going down the hills and shit, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, but you know, just that hustle, like getting it, and he had a couple businesses when I was growing up. He had a liquor store in Northern Boulevard that always got robbed like every Friday. And then like he had the bodega, and the bodega was right under my building. And there's where I started hustling as well, illegal stuff.
Illegal stuff. So what's the story with that? You graduated from Heineken bottles, and then what happened next?
Yeah, so I followed my cousin's footsteps. Pretty much all my cousins and family members that I grew up with were involved in the world of drugs. Was selling coke, crack on corner of Rivington and Eldridge, and every corner was a different, like, you know, everybody owned different corner. And I seen my cousins growing up and dealing on that corner, and my mom used to leave me there. So at 11, I started smoking weed, being a lookout, and then eventually at 13, I started dealing with them. Then I graduated to crack cocaine at 14, and I started working for somebody on Broom and Eldridge. That's why I like brand that whole sweatshirt. It's where Broom and Eldridge on the exact same corner. Where I started selling drugs at is where Conbody is at now, and it came back to a full circle. But we changed the way we sold drugs at a time, and one of my cases is very significant to the feds because they never seen anything like it. I started like the first cocaine delivery service all around the city in the tri-state area, and at 19 I was making over $2 million a year, operating a team of over 20 people.
And eventually that ended. How did that end? What's that?
Yeah, you want to know the whole story or?
No, just
okay.
like what happened.
Yeah, no, at 23, I got incarcerated, was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Somebody basically told on me. Yeah, long story short, it gets deeper.
And then you started getting into fitness while you were in prison. What was the motivation for it? Was it something you were interested in beforehand, or is it something that was like spurred by that experience?
Yeah, I was definitely not interested in fitness when I went in. But I quickly got interested in fitness when the doctors in prison told me I could die in prison because of my health issues. I was really overweight, and when I went to get my first medical exam, they said my cholesterol levels were through the roof, and they said if I continue living the lifestyle I was living, that within 5 years I could probably die of a heart attack. And so when I heard that from the doctor, I was like, I'm not gonna die. You crazy? You lying to me? But just like going back to my prison cell and start dwelling on my thoughts and saying like, damn, I don't want to die in this place, because when you die in prison, all they give you is a tombstone with a number. They don't even put your name on it.
And so you left prison and you ended up, so wait, you were in prison, you started building kind of your fitness regimen and what you were doing for yourself. Did you also start doing it for other people? Was it just like a personal thing, or did you start training other people?
Yeah, so I basically, as soon as they told me that, I went back to my prison cell, started doing dips, jumping jacks off the side of my bed, and like just experimenting and moving. And 5 minutes, I said, fuck that, this shit is way too hard. So I like dropped in my bed and I like lay there, and I was like, it was frustrating. But the next morning I woke up and they called the rec yard, and I just like waited, and I was like looking at the ceiling of my cell, and I was like, I need to get moving. So I decided to go outside to the yard and just start running. I couldn't run a whole lap around the yard. The yard is around like pretty much like a track. And I was like running maybe a quarter of it and then walking. And then eventually I started running for 2 hours at a time. And I lost 70 pounds in 6 months with just running and going back to my prison cell, doing workout to my cell. And then other inmates would call me Fat Forrest Gump and all these honey bun jokes. And I was the only one in the yard running. It was like super awkward, and people would like make fun of me for it. But it was a time where I could just like go out there, like just focus and meditate and just keep moving. And then one guy named Bus, we called him Bus because he was like really the size of a bus. He was like 320. He looked like he was gonna die in a year, but he came up to me and asked me for a cigarette. I used to smoke cigarettes. After my runs, I used to sit down on the bench, smoke a cigarette, and he asked me for half. Like he was like, "Yo, give me a bust down," which means half of a cigarette. So I gave him a bust down, and he started telling me that he wanted to run with me. And then, long story short, he started running with me. He lost 80 pounds with me. He brought 2 other friends, and then it became a whole trend, and we just started like a camaraderie in the prison yard and started working out.
How did you stay focused? Because I feel like that experience of like wanting to do something and having pretty much everybody around you telling you it's stupid or not a good idea is like something everybody can relate to. Like, what was it you were focusing on that got you through that part?
I have a 10-year-old son, and I really thought about him while I was incarcerated, and I just said like I don't want to die in this place, man. I feel like I needed to keep moving, just to be out there for him and just keep living.
So you have this practice, a type of exercises you can do and show other people. At what point did it turn into a business, and when was the light bulb that like, hey, I can turn this into a company?
Yeah, so I didn't think about turning it into a company until I ended up in solitary confinement. I got in an altercation with an officer who, put his hands on me and I ended up in solitary, which is 23-hour lockdown, 1 hour rec. I was actually in a 24-hour lockdown space. They denied me rec. They put me on a Loaf diet, which is like a bread loaf with all types of nasty shit. It's the nastiest thing ever. And you get 2 showers a week. You can't talk to anybody. I was just going insane in there, and but a light bulb hit and said I wanted to, I wanted to give back to society, and I had like a spiritual awakening of some sort. And the first thing I thought about was like fitness. I love fitness. I'm already helping these guys in the yard. This is what I want to do when I come home. So from that prison cell, I was released a year later, and I came home and I started doing it in the local park on Firesides down the block. And I started just going up to females wearing yoga pants and just like pitching them and pitching everybody. And I like made 10,000 business cards and like went on the subway and handed out flyers and just like nonstop asking. And I was so excited when I had 2 people in the park, and I was like, yo, I made it, So because I felt like nobody wanted to do this, but like they continued coming, and I felt like, that was a spark right there when I got a couple people in.
So were you doing other jobs or finding other ways to make money while you're also building like the initial parts of the company?
Yeah, when I came home, like that was the first thing I did, was just go to the park. Like literally that morning I woke up, I went to the park and just started doing the workouts there. And I was trying to find a job. I went to like Times Square, Herald. I went to like every retail shop you could probably think of, and filled out so many applications, and I was being denied left and right. And then I landed like a housekeeping gig off the books that my uncle hooked me up with. So I was just like cleaning and doing Conbody, and then I landed an internship, and I was doing that.
So in every company, there's an inflection point where you go from pitching people and it's starting to seem like a business. What was the point where you're like, all right, this is something that is going to sustain me full time, and I will keep employing people and keep growing? Like, was there a specific point where that happened for you?
Yeah, so I started renting out like these ballet studios because it started getting cold outside and people stopped coming. And they was like, fuck that, I'm not going out there. You're crazy. And I was like, yo, this is how you do it up north. Like, we don't care. We go out to the yard no matter what, but nobody was showing up.
Nobody's into that.
Yeah, they're like, yo, you bugging out. So I rented out these like ballet studios on 440 Lafayette. And it was like these 500 square foot ballet studios. And the room started getting packed. I mean, like, there was like 20 people in a 500 square foot space. And the number one complaint was like, it was too packed. And I was like, get used to it. This is how prison is. They stick you in a can. Like, so I started like branding everything and thinking of like ideas to like put the prison kick in it. And that's when I knew something was clicking, when I had people just like knocking on the door trying to get in. And I'm like, yo, I'm sorry. Like, it's too packed right now. And that's when I felt like there was something.
And you've gotten a lot of press. Like, what do you think was the reason that was happening? Was that something you initiated? How did you get your story out to all these folks?
Yeah, so I just stopping a lady with yoga pants on the street. She was like a fitness blogger. She wrote about me. And then somebody else picked it up, and then I met somebody when I was doing another speaking thing. NPR picked it up, and then I did a TED Talk, and then, I mean, it's been over like 200 media outlets now. And everything has been word of mouth. I haven't spent an ad dollar yet, and I'm about to spend some ad dollars to just test out the market, yeah.
And then do you have any thoughts on how do you keep people coming back? Was it a part of the process? Was there something you did that made sure that people kept coming week after week and stayed part of your community?
Yeah, I think it was just delivering a great product and just being real. When I first started, I started going to like every fitness class around the city, Soul Cycle, Barry's, you name it. I went to like all these spots. And what I felt was that I was invisible. I felt like, Ken and Barbie were standing over there like fixing their hair, putting makeup before getting on a bike. And I was like, yo, fuck that. Like, I don't want to like be around these people. And like going into a locker room and putting like 1, 2, 3, 4. I always fuck that shit up in the locker room. I was like, yo, this is too difficult. Like, I want it like simple. And I think the simplicity of it was what, and the realness and the being charismatic and just the grit behind the whole company was what brought people back. The realness when people just walked in, and we have lockers and we don't use any locks in the lockers. So we tell people like trust an ex-con with your shit, and we build the whole fitness studio to look like a prison. So when you walk in, you take a mug shot, you go through a prison gate. If you're gonna take a shower, it's 5 minutes. So we really branded the whole experience. But it's just no frills, and people I feel like gravitated to the no bullshit, no judgment zone. We have people that weigh 300 pounds, and we have like, Barbie that's 100 pounds, and it just brought every type of person and community together, and it was just so real.
And your business is mostly run through the cash flow that you generate from, fitness classes. That's always a difficulty a lot of other entrepreneurs in the room have, is like, how do you, plan for growth, but also make sure you have enough to keep the lights on? Because you have a physical space, you have to pay for that. You have other trainers. How do you manage and plan to make sure that you have enough for, your operations going forward?
Yeah, so I did plan when I, started the business. I joined this entrepreneur program called Defy Ventures that believes illegal entrepreneurs could become legal entrepreneurs. They really helped me out, like map out the whole plan. But when you start a business, shit happens, and I didn't really have a contingency, and I didn't start the business with a lot of cash. So things happened, and I just had to like, pray to God and be like, Jesus, like help me. And things worked out, and as I went on, I started learning and, thinking ahead, like, I need to save something just in case this happens. So continuously just pushing it out there, asking. I just thank God the lights are still on. There's been times where I'm like, yo, how am I gonna pay these people? The ex-cons, they're gonna beat the fuck out of me. I'm just kidding. But nah, it's just there are, that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. You don't know if it's gonna shut down one day or you're gonna like blow up one day. And today has been a real blessing just to go through that whole roller coaster and survive already almost 5 years.
So where do you want to take it? How do you want the business to grow, and what are the things you guys are working on for the future?
Yeah, so right now we want to like expand and open up a couple more studios. We want to open up another studio in like the Chelsea Flatiron district, and then go bi-coastal. Right now I'm like bi-coastal right now in LA, working on doing like pop-up classes out there, and then franchise. I have over 60 franchise requests across the country, or even London and even Hong Kong. But I want to re-expand and give as many people coming out of the system an opportunity to work for us. And then we recently just got an opportunity with Snapchat. Snapchat just invested in us. So we're working on doing other crazy shit with them. Yeah.
What's been the biggest lesson for you through building the company that you'll take with you, let's say if you do another company or something else? Like what has stuck with you as a lesson?
That everything's gonna work out no matter what. Like, no matter what, everything's gonna work out. I could be going through like the hardest, most tough times, and as an entrepreneur, it's gonna be the hardest journey that I've ever taken and ever went through. And it's just been so much of a roller coaster ride. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna sleep, I'm gonna eat the best food, going on down. Just go to 42 Rivington Street in my mom's Dominican apartment, and just know that everything's gonna be all right, because this entrepreneurship could get very depressing, and then it could get very high, and it's like a whole manic depressive moments, and it's frustrating, But at the end of the day, I know that everything's going to be okay. And referring and a shout out to my moms, because I feel like she's one of the most successful people on this planet. She only makes $12 an hour as a home health aide, 63 years old. But, she wakes up every morning. She works out with us 4 times a week. I can't charge her. And she eats the best Dominican food that she makes because she makes it at home, and that's real success there. It doesn't matter if I'm gonna, own a Lamborghini and a mansion, somewhere. I think just continuously living life and experiences, and that's what it's all about.
Amazing. Awesome. Do you guys have any questions from the audience for Coss? I can't really see you. You're very dark.
Thank you.
The startup podcast. It was awesome season, and keep doing what you're doing. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Questions, Tani?
Anything from your previous entrepreneur experience that you brought with you or you learned that, should either be at your shoes or prepared you for this?
So the question is, anything from your previous entrepreneurship experience that you brought to Conbody?
Yeah, I think consistency that I brought in the streets. Every day I was waking up with a great product, and I was standing on that corner, and I was literally on Broome and Eldridge for like 3 days at a time. I mean, I was literally just going to the corner bodega, buying a quart of water and a toothbrush and a toothpaste, and just like brushing my teeth on a corner, not to miss a dollar, but always delivering. And always being consistent and delivering a great product, and I think that's the key. And I felt like if I continuously doing that and believe in it, it's gonna pop, and that's what happened. I went from like 1 person to 2 people, and then it just became a trend, and now we've trained over 20,000 people, and it's been a blessing.
Any others? Josh?
Running the thing yourself to building out a team of people and sort of growing that?
So the transition from just being kind of like a solo trainer to building out an actual organization, because you need different skills for both sides of that.
Yeah. So it happened organically, and I felt like we have an unconventional way of hiring. I conduct my interviews at 5:30 in the morning. If you show up late, then you don't want it. I do a lot of different things, and I don't even look at resumes. When somebody, as a formerly incarcerated individual, most of their resumes are janitorial jobs from Attica, correctional facility, and they'll just put Attica facility, and I'll put the correct, and I'm like, yeah, I know where you were at. So just taking that and really just connecting with that person, seeing if they're charismatic, if they're open, if they are willing to learn. And I think everything else is just learnable, and you could, it could be taught along the way. But I hired my first person, basically by mistake. I was interning and doing a resume writing job for Goodwill Industries, and I was writing resumes for people that were on public assistance or coming out of the prison system. And this one guy sat down next to my desk, and he was like, I want a resume to be a fitness trainer. I'm already training people in the park, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, really? Oh, yeah? Well, tell me more. And I was like, so where were you at? And he was like, and he just put his head down. He was like, yeah, I did 14 years in prison. I just came home 3 months ago. And I was like, here's my card. Check out what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And I started telling him what I did. And then he came and just, was like, I want to be a part of this. And then it became, that it just happened. And that's how it went down. And then it continued. Now we go back into Rikers Island and train guys and all this other stuff, and then work with other nonprofit organizations that refer individuals. So right now it's a better system than, the lucky, whatever happened. But yeah, now it's a little bit more set.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Coss,
Thank you for
talking
having
with
me,
us. And yeah, That's it for today.
And thank you guys for coming by.